Hi everyone, I'm Phoebe and I'm one of Mark's takeaway mentors for his scheme which he's kindly facilitating. And today I'm going to be talking about growth related injuries. I'm going to talk about Osgood Schlatters and also Severs disease, but I'm going to do it as two separate videos because the first video I recorded was like 9 minutes long and I don't have the technological skills to manage to send that across to Mark. So there's going to be the first one on Severs disease and then part 2 will follow on Osgood Schlatters. It's in a similar vein to a question that Stuart answered a few days ago in response to a few issues that the under-15s I think have been having. So I'm hoping to follow on from that and also provide a bit of my own experience and also talk about Severs disease. So I'll start with Severs disease because that was the disease I had first. Both Severs and Osgood Schlatters are growth-related injuries. Severs occurs when your Achilles tendon pulls on your heel bone, like so the bit under your foot, and until you're fully grown your heel bone hasn't fused, so it's got a growth plate on, and that growth plate gets quite inflamed when you're pulling, if you can imagine pulling on the bone that's wanting to sort of reattach one way. Very common, as is Osgood Schlatters, and I first started getting heel pain when I was about 10 or 11, and it started off not too bad, so I sort of run around, play netball, play hockey, didn't do much running at this point but did other sports. And it would hurt at the end. I'd put an ice pack on it, wake up the next morning, oh it's fine, let's go again. This cycle kind of deteriorated and each time it got worse and worse. And I got to the point where I was limping around and I really couldn't put much weight through it at all. We went to see the physio and they weren't particularly sure what was going on, and so they actually referred me for an MRI scan. After the doctor looked at it, he recommended putting me on crutches for 2 weeks just to completely stop weight bearing on it, because even when you're walking you hit the ground every time. And then after that I had a gradual return to exercise, which didn't take too long because I hadn't been out for too long, but it was just to try and break this cycle of inflammation at the beginning. And he also recommended lots of calf stretches as well as calf exercises. So a common theme with these sort of growth related injuries is that people are like, oh, do your exercises, get this muscle strong, do lots of calf raises, do lots of hamstring bridges, do lots of glute bridges. But the problem is that if you keep strengthening the muscle, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and you actually need stretches to loosen it off as well so that your muscle keeps its same length. Likewise, if people just say do stretches, the muscle gets looser and looser and looser, and for running especially you want to keep some tension within the muscle, because obviously it's running is quite a springy motion, so you want to be able to keep that power. So after that, after being on crutches and after taking a bit of time out and doing my exercises, it got a lot better, and it did flare up every now and again, but never as bad as the first time. And the doctor also said to me that you won't make anything worse, you won't structurally damage anything if you keep on running through it. So to me that was basically just a green light to be like, well, you're fine, off you go and do what you like, as long as you can run through it, play sport through it, you'll be fine. Although this isn't the best idea because you can sometimes compensate, and I'll talk a bit about this more with my knee because I found that more of a problem, but I did actually stop when it got really sore, and I was probably more careful with shoe choice after this point, just to really ensure that my heel was protected and cushioned. However, it hasn't had any long-lasting effects, and I've never struggled with heel pain, or I've had one Achilles injury actually, but that's unrelated, since. So it is something that once it settles down and goes away, it will be absolutely fine. Hi all, welcome back to part 2 of my talk on growth-related injuries as part of Mark's takeaway mental scheme. So this one's on Osgood Schlatters. The previous one focused on Severs disease. They can be watched in isolation, it doesn't really matter. But Osgood Schlatters is a growth-related injury of the knee, and it occurs when your patellar tendon gets inflamed. So your patella is your kneecap, and it's got 2 tendinous insertions. One goes down to the shin bone and then one up the thigh bone. And it's this one that goes down to the shin bone that causes Osgood Schlatters, and it's quite often the reason why you get the lump under your knee, because of all this swelling and fluid coming off from the tendon. So I suffered with Osgood Schlatters first when I was about 13 or 14, and I had this cycle where when I did sport, it got worse, I put an ice pack on it, went to bed, woke up the next day and it felt better. But gradually it got worse and worse, and it took longer to recover in between activities. A lot of my friends had it, or had it at the time, as it was very common. So I went to the physio, they confirmed and prescribed quite a few exercises mainly for hamstrings, quads and calves. So things like hamstring bridges, glute bridges, a lot of lunges and also calf raises. And also they said to make sure you keep doing your stretches of those muscles to keep them supple, because you don't just want to strengthen it, because it'll get tense and tenser and tighter and tighter and tighter, and then when you go back to running, you're at more risk of pulling it or like even tearing it. I was pretty religious at doing my exercises because I couldn't do any sport at this point, because the physio had also said to take a few weeks out just to let the inflammation settle down. But if you do struggle with kind of keeping yourself accountable for doing exercises, call me old-fashioned, but the best way is to print off a tick sheet, put it somewhere where someone else can see it, so whether it's mum, dad, brother, sister, and they can be like, oh, I see you haven't done your exercises today. A lot of people try and put reminders on their phone or whatever, but it's so easy to just dismiss it or snooze it and put it off, that I found that actually having something physical made me do it. The other two treatments that really helped, one is more evidence-based than the other, are a patella knee strap. So they're quite common on the market, but I found that the kind of custom-made bands didn't really work very well because I couldn't bend my knee very well in them, and they also didn't fit my leg. So I'd often find they were too big and I couldn't get them tight enough to have any effect. So I found this tape that was probably only about that wide, 60 to 70 centimetres long, and you could literally like wrap it around your knee as many times as you wanted, just under the kneecap to support it, and that really, really helped take the pressure off the tendon. The other thing that was useful was a supplement called Osgon. So I wouldn't recommend taking supplements normally because a balanced diet should suffice, but Osgon is basically just quite a large dose of selenium, which has been shown to help tendons recover. And initially I was a bit sceptical when I looked back that I'd taken it and was like, oh, I think mum probably just gave me that as a placebo effect, and was like, oh, well, if I give my daughter a tablet, she'll think I'm doing something and she'll make it better quicker. But I actually looked on their website and they're still going now, about 7 or 8 years later, after starting their business. So I guess there must be some sort of benefit, or people are thinking that it works, because otherwise it's not going to keep going. So it is frustrating having Osgood Schlatters, because you do feel that you could sort of run through it because it comes off so quickly after exercise. So it really hurts at the time, but then afterwards you're like, oh, maybe I could have carried on. But it's really sensible to stop when it hurts a lot, because you can end up compensating for it using other muscles. So I found that when I would run through it, I kept pulling my hamstring, or I even tore it once actually, on the other leg to the one that my knee particularly was sore on. And so you are doing the right thing by stopping, no matter how frustrating it is at the time. So I hope that helps, gives you a few ideas of how you can go forward with treatment. So my main bits are ice initially, rest, exercises, stretches, a patella strap. If you want to try Osgon, go for it. Not sure exactly how much you can recommend it. This is just from my personal opinion. I'm not a doctor or anything. And yeah, good luck with it. It will settle down, and I can barely even remember it. I can't remember how long it lasted, even when it really started. So it won't have any long-lasting consequences, and soon you really will forget about it and just be like, oh, well, it was a bit inconvenient, my knee hurt for a bit, but, well, got over it. And I've never had any knee-related injuries since, and so you will be fine. Good luck. And if you have any more questions or want to know anything more, just get in touch with me through Mark or directly. Thank you.